start, so it's been quiet. I like that. Hi, I'm Carol Flax. I am the president of the Clyburn Community Council, and we are the sponsors of this evening. I want to welcome you all. It's good to see a good crowd here. And thank you to those of you who sent us questions. We really appreciate that. I think there's some good ones. I want to thank Christina, Michael, and Joe, who were on the forum committee, and we all worked together to put this together. There are a number of board members here, or council members here tonight. We're all wearing name tags, so if you have questions about the council, we can answer. If you have questions about the hall, the head of the hall, Mike Gerhardt, is wandering around with a name tag. And if you have questions about the candidates in elections, you have to ask them or their assistants. We have a few things coming up. First, we meet the last Monday of every month, and generally we have a guest speaker. They're always interesting, and the information on that's posted on our website, our Facebook page, all our social media, and the public is welcome to all of our meetings. And the speaker's always first at 6 o'clock, so you don't have to stay for the whole thing. You can come and hear the speaker. But we'd love to have people show up for that. We are working on a community meeting for the fall. We try to do 2 of those every year, and that info will go out soon. And we've been working really closely with the county planners on the Clinton sub-area plan for the comp plan, which probably most of you know there's a 10-year comp plan that just was finished, and there's a Clinton sub-area plan. So we've been very interested in that, working closely with them, and we will keep the community informed about that, and, as we make progress on it. And what else do I want to tell you? Hopefully everybody signed in and put your email address on there and it's legible. And we now have a newsletter, an email newsletter, so if you want to hear more about what the council's doing, make sure we can read your email address and we will add you to our email list. I guess if you don't want to know, you can ignore it. And let's see what else. There's an info table at the kitchen. There's a bunch of tables in the kitchen, so each candidate has a table. The library has a table about the levy for the library, which is coming up with the election. And the round table has information about voting in general. So please check all those out. And don't forget to vote August 4th. And it's highly suggested that you use the drop boxes, not the U.S. mail. So please do that. They're all over. There's one at Ken's Corner if you're new and you don't know that. So I'm going to turn this over to my Clyburn, who's our moderator, who's going to tell you all about the rules.
Hi, I'm Mike Clyburn, the moderator. So, first of all, when we contacted all of the candidates with the dates for these forums, we got 100% response. Everybody said they would be here, but things happen and things come up for people. So, Robert Hicks, who is running for position number 1 against Clyde Shavers, is not here tonight. And Carrie Kennedy, who's running for position number 2, is not here tonight. So the rules, first up is the legislative district 10 state representatives. So I will introduce the candidates, and they will each have 60 seconds for an opening statement. And then we have a set of questions here, and sort of questions submitted by the public and by the committee that was working on this. There will be no questions from the audience during this forum, but we encourage the candidates to stick around after the program so people can talk to them one-on-one. So the first candidate to answer a question will have 90 seconds to respond, and each remaining candidate will have 60 seconds. We set it up that way because the other people have time to think while the first person is thinking on their feet and talking, so they get the extra 30 seconds, and we rotate who's first, so it should all be fair in the end. Carol is the timekeeper. She's got cards. When we have 30 seconds left, when you have 15 seconds left, and when you have to stop. So we have no questions from the audience, with the exception of the beginning of the program. The audience will be asked not to applaud or express support or opposition during the forum, because that just takes up time when we could be hearing from the candidates instead. And like Carol said, the candidates all have a table in the other room with their literature and their signs and everything there. So, let's get started.
I forgot to say, we are recording this.
Yes.
And
It'll be posted as soon as we can get it all together, so pretty soon.
On our website?
I think.
It will be posted, once we get the transcription done, we will get a link that will be, the actual video will be posted on the Voters Interest Project with Alan Peters, and then there will be a link to that video on our website, and then anyone else can have that link to be able to see the video. But the basic thing that will take our time is we like to do a transcription with the video so that if you didn't understand what the candidate said, or you didn't understand the question, you'll be given the questions and their answers, and you can watch the video. So, just give me some time.
Everybody heard that? Okay. Oh, there will be a link on our website to the recording, but we do a transcription before we put up that link, so it won't be like tomorrow, it'll be a few days, yeah. But it'll be before the election. Okay. I hermetically seal the questions here. Okay, so we'll just start with Clyde first, and we'll take turns going first on each of the questions. And the first question is, please introduce yourself and talk about the top 3 priorities as you represent the 10th legislative district.
Thank you.
Sorry, there's 1 minute, not 90 seconds, 1 minute each for the opening statement. Okay.
Great. Sorry. Thank you. I want to first off start by saying thank you all for being here. I believe that democracy persists, democracy endures because of you, your involvement being here, your civic engagement. So thank you for being here tonight. So my name is Clyde Shavers. I am your 10th Legislative District, Position 1 State Representative. I currently serve as the Vice Chair of the House Education Committee, so anything to do with kindergarten to 12th grade. I'm also the Assistant Speaker Pro Tempore, so essentially one of those representatives that has the gavel up in front of the House floor moving procedures on. But in terms of the priorities, many priorities, but first is affordability. These past 4 sessions have been focused on that. Second is technology use for the better to help us solving tomorrow's problems today. And then third is looking at kind of where we at with affordable housing. How do we ensure that everyone has the ability to live where they live, and also the ability to call somewhere home. Thank you.
Nate, Paul.
Hi folks, thanks so much for being here. It's such an honor to be here at the first forum of the season. I'm Nate Paul. I work at Skagit Valley College for my day job, and I get to teach American government and help the college with their accreditation work. I've been in the legislature now for 8 years, and I focus a lot on education. For me, the top 3 issues are affordability, so I'm focusing a lot on college affordability. The second is that we need to be creating more family wage jobs. There's a lot of anger in America over the shrinking middle class, everybody's have every right to be angry. And one of the things we can do to combat that is to have better living wage jobs. The third thing that I'm working on is bringing together county and regional officials to improve our designated crisis responder program. That's a really critical public safety issue where I think that the providers have not done a good job with that. We're working on that this summer, and we're going to see some results, I think, later this fall about that.
And Tim Hazelo.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank Mike and the council for having us here tonight. And I'm happy that Carol's 5-second card is a card, not a club. So that's pretty good. My name's Tim Hazelo. I'm kind of a newcomer to this race. I am one of those guys that believes we should be voting for the people who have the best ideas, not an R or a D behind the name. I think the people with the best ideas are the ones we should put in office. And unfortunately, we've had 40 years of bad ideas in the state of Washington. Things that have all cost me money. My top issues are same as these guys' top issues. Affordability. It's a big deal. My kids can't afford to live here. So affordability. Infrastructure. We sure do spend a lot of money on infrastructure. How many potholes? Have any of you been through Bellingham lately? Or North Whidbey on the bridge? So infrastructure. And then of course safety. Safety's a big deal. There's all kinds of safety issues that we have to tackle. Homelessness, drug addiction. I have a passion about drug addiction. I have a family member who passed away due to drug addiction, and so it's a big deal for me. So those are the things that I want to tackle moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next question, and Dave will have 90 seconds. Go first. State agency leaders received a dire warning from Governor Bob Ferguson's office in June that they're headed towards, quote, what will likely be the most challenging budget any of us has yet faced. There will be significant budget shortfalls next biennium in both operation and transportation budgets. This year's revenue forecast will likely not provide sufficient support for the maintenance of current programs, let alone any expansions. How do you propose handling this issue? 90 seconds.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So really an important issue, our state budget is the ultimate reflection of the values we're trying to implement as a state. And right now that budget's in a lot of trouble. We've had strong inflationary pressures in Washington State and across the nation. You've seen that. Everybody in this room has faced that. And those rising costs due to inflation have really impacted the state and our ability to do everything from transportation to everything else our state's trying to do. The HR 1 that was passed last year at the federal level has made matters worse, so the state is trying to backfill some of those cuts. It's Medicaid, we're talking the state budget. I was asking the budget chair, how are you prioritizing these cuts? And he says, Dave, we're trying to have fewer people die. As they were looking at things like cutting dialysis funding. It's just really challenging right now, and our state has a really upside down budget structure that's very regressive. We're going to have to control some of the inflationary growth we've seen in our state budget. We'll see some help in 2 years when revenues come in from the millionaire's tax, but until then, this next budget year is going to be challenging.
Tim, for 60 seconds.
60 seconds. Yeah, it's a big deal. We can just look back to Governor Gregoire, and she said it best. She said Washington State does not have a revenue problem. We don't. We have tons of money. The government takes more money from you guys than you can even count. We have a spending problem. We spend on things that don't need to be spent on. We spend things that are over budgeted for the certain things. I want to get specific. 60 seconds doesn't give us enough time. Here's the deal. We like to say that inflation is causing this. Inflation over the last 15 to 18 years is about 35%. Why is our budget up 150%? Very good question. And that's a question that we should ask the incumbents, not the people who are trying to go in and fix it. Thank you.
And Clyde for 60 seconds.
Thank you very much. This is a really important question because, as Representative Paul said, it undergirds a lot of what we do, the policies we pass, the funding appropriations in our communities. Now, I think we need to really focus on the programs and that agenda doesn't really we care about, and then make more cost effective and skinny those other programs that have the ability to be skinnied or to be made more cost effective. So for example, as Vice Chair of the House Education Committee, I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out our school district budget, our education budget, which takes up a lot of our state's budget. The way we're handling this, at least in our office, is to utilize the community resources. How do we ensure that we have more career learning opportunities that uses the surrounding community, like Boeing or maybe telecom? How do we ensure that our students are prepared for this challenging budget future using what already exists within our community? So those are the kinds of ideas that our office has been pushing for and passing legislation on.
Okay, thank you. So this next question, Jim will be first with 90 seconds. The 9.9% millionaires tax was passed this last session. Do you support this tax?
Absolutely not. And I'll tell you why. Because it's not going to be for millionaires. It's going to be for all of you. You heard my opponent Dave here talk about the pitfalls, the downfalls, the deficit. $9 billion is what the government's putting out. $9 billion deficit. So do you think the $3 billion that the millionaires are going to pay in, if they can stick around long enough to pay in, do you think that $3 billion is going to be enough to cover the difference? No, it's not. Who's going to cover the difference? We are. That's why the incumbents voted against a measure to limit it to millionaires. It's not limited to millionaires. There's an obscure little line around page 140 that talks about millionaires in 2 lines, easily changed by the next legislature when this budget stays too high. So they're going to come for you. And whether you make $1 million or not, you're going to you're going to file a tax return. Just to prove you don't, first and foremost. And then if you do, well, you're just going to give up some more of your money. And so, I believe in paying your fair share. I pay my share. Boy, do I pay. But the reality is you're all going to pay on this income tax. It's not a millionaire's tax. I know that they want us to believe it, and the media pitches it, but that's not the reality of it. It's an all-of-you income tax. So let's get together and find better ways to do this and spend less money. That's the reality of it. We can budget ourselves just like we do at home. Thank you.
Clyde, your 60 seconds.
Thank you. So I want to start off by saying I voted no on the millionaire's tax last session. But I also want to start and impress upon you all and stress that we really need to fix our regressive tax system. Too much is borne on the low income, even middle income folks to support so many services that we all care about. Now, there are 2 reasons I voted no on the millionaire's tax. Now, as we move hopefully forward towards fixing this regressive tax system, we need to be deliberative. The first is that as we fix kind of the regressiveness of our tax system, what do we do about property taxes and sales tax, which is actually borne mostly on the low income folks as well? That needs to be a dual approach. And second, in this millionaire's tax, as we talk about our priorities like K-12 education or higher ed or healthcare, we need to ensure that that revenue goes directly into those programs, not through the legislature. So those are the kind of the issue points that really stuck with me, but really hoping to really fix the regressive tax system in Washington State.
Dave, for 60 seconds.
Thank you. So, I take every tax vote seriously, and I was not expecting to, I think many of you saw me at the midterm, at the mid-session forum. I wasn't sure I would vote for this. In the end, the cuts we were looking at in K-12 education and healthcare, I just couldn't stomach. So I don't know a lot of folks that are going to pay this tax. The first $1 million you earn are exempt. The tax is on that 9.9%, it's on everything above that. If you're going to pay it, I'm impressed. And the governor has pledged not to sign anything that lowers the threshold. And I believe him. And I'm not going to vote for anything that lowers the threshold for $1 million. So in the end, I picked students over millionaires as I was trying to balance those competing demands. It was a really controversial issue. That's why I made the vote.
Thank you. Clyde will be first on this question. This question is near and dear to our hearts here at Clyburn Community Council. Clinton Community Council has advocated for traffic calming and pedestrian safety measures on Highway 25 for at least a decade. The 2025 revision of the Allen County Comp Plan includes a Clinton sub-area plan, which describes the county's intent to focus future growth in Clinton. It talks about the goal of coordinating with WashDOT on potential streetscape improvements, traffic calming measures, and signal improvements. So the question, would you be willing to advocate for these implementations of these measures in the transportation budget?
Yes, it's a really good question. It's good because our office has actually been our office has been quite involved in this topic or this issue already. So as some of you may know, or many of you, or all of us know, there have been tragic accidents in the past, actually very nearby, near the ferry terminal and all across Whidbey Island. We've been in communication with WashDOT, so Washington Department of Transportation, on figuring out how can the legislature provide the necessary funding, the tools and resources for signaling, for example, or whatever that may be necessary to really prevent and mitigate these disasters. I think the challenge right now, is, as you mentioned, it's been going on for quite some time, is who owns the roads, for example, how much money is afforded from the legislature to deal with this issue. So this is an ongoing issue. Our office continues to talk with constituents about trying to figure this out. At the same time, the comp plan really affects how our towns look, right? How our towns operate. We're really focused also on collaborating, for example, with Island Transit to ensure that public transportation is paramount, that folks who are in affordable housing have access to the services they need, for example, to get to work and to serve all of us. So these are all the issues. I know it's a very big topic, but we've been very involved in this and looking forward to making real change in this.
60 seconds.
Thank you. So a great question. And, I think, we can disagree a lot in our state. I think there's a consensus that we need to be doing more on maintenance and preservation of our transportation system. And there needs to be more to be done to improve safety. And what I'd like to see coming up more out of the Transportation Committee, and I've talked to WashDOT and the Governor's Office about this, I'd like to see them better prioritize and show us the rank order list of the safety projects that they believe are necessary, so the legislature can fund its way down the list. On the capital project side, Rep. Shavers has served on that committee. We get rank ordered lists about what they think the priorities are from the governor's office, and then we try to fund our way down. And it's frustrating working with WashDOT on this because it's hard to get an answer about where they'll advocate they want the funding, but then how are you going to spend it? And to have that prioritization, I think, would be really helpful and would help with my colleagues to help show that that's what we're going to fund if we expand that budget.
10 for 60 seconds.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know if you guys knew this, but my family lost a child to the unsafe roads on Highway 20 on North Whidbey. And so that was a pretty devastating blow for us. So yes, I agree with both my friends here. That's a big deal, isn't it? Our roads need to be safe. Our children need to be safe. And so we have to figure out smart and safe ways of doing it. But we also have to figure out efficient and affordable ways of doing it. See, we always talk about affordability, but then we throw as much money as we can at every little project, regardless of what other projects need to be taken care of. This all goes back to affordability. Can we afford it? Yes, we can. But we might have to not afford something else, somewhere else. And that's the dilemma that we run into. That's why we have a $9 billion deficit. That's why our budget is tripled almost. It's crazy. Well, a little over doubled. I'm not going to say tripled, but it's over doubled. So we have to prioritize. This is a priority. A lot of the other stuff isn't. So we need to figure this out, and that's why I'm running for office. Thank you.
Dave will be your first on this one with 90 seconds. School districts across Island County continue to face severe budgetary challenges. What is your specific plan to reform the state's K-12 funding formula to help rural schools?
That's a great question. So we had the McCleary decision said the Supreme Court said we weren't fully funding our K-12 schools. That was implemented just before I got into office. The legislature can't just say, well, that problem has been solved. We're not fully funding our schools. We're not providing adequate, fully funded special education. We're not fully funded transportation. As the costs of inflation go up, there's a term about the insurance and other costs that the schools are paying for called MSOC. Those dollars aren't going up. And then as you have a declining and shrinking birth rate, you're seeing fewer students going to these schools, and it's very much attendance-driven formula. And for school districts like South Whitby, where housing is expensive and then families can't afford to live here, that becomes a vicious cycle where you don't have kids going into school, so you have fewer dollars coming in. We've got to look at that whole formula. We've got to look at that schools are being funded by students, per student. We're not funding any of those categories adequately. And if we don't take care of that, we're going to have another lawsuit like we did with Cleary a couple of decades ago. It is the paramount duty of our state to fully fund K-12 education. That is a path to build the middle class, and we should be funding it adequately.
Kim, for 60 seconds.
Oh, great. You know, I agree with Dave here that the formula is broken. It's not what we're spending per student, because we spend more money per student in the state of Washington than most states do. But where do we rank? The new rankings just came out. We went down another 9 states. We're in the mid-30s now of education in articulate students able to pass the test. So it's not a money issue, you guys. It's not a money issue. We need to slim the top, and we need to figure out how to teach the children what they need to know to move forward. So, once again, affordability. We have to decide what's affordable and what's not. Do we need so many administrators, or do we need more good teachers? I say we need more good teachers. And that's something the legislature can pass on. They can't dictate that to the school boards, right? The school boards are all independent. And I appreciate what my colleagues here do for education. But the reality is, we can, as legislators, give advice and funding and do it the right way. Thank you.
Clyde, for 60 seconds.
Thank you for this question. It's a really important question. I actually spent a significant amount of time on this question because I am the vice chair of the House Education Committee. So our chair Representative Sharon Santos, and I actually have a monthly meeting with several groups, several districts, OSPI, on building the new century or the new Washington State education system. And with that comes the funding side. A lot of our bills that we passed in these past 4 years have been focused on career learning opportunities. How do we ensure that we are shifting our school environment so that our kids are ready to actually grow into great holistic adults into this new world? And going back to my previous point, we only have 60 seconds, it's hard to kind of expound, is that how do we use the resources, the tools in the community to help our students? By doing that, we're able to really make schools more efficient and more collaborative. So those are one of the many things that we're looking at here and trying to figure out how to create this new Washington State education system.
Okay. Kim will be first on this next question with 90 seconds. There's a movement in Washington State to reform the powers that the state grants to corporations and artificial entities. Specifically, it would eliminate those entities' rights to contribute to elections and political campaigns. Do you support this?
That's a good question. You know, I haven't spent a lot of time on that because I'm not in office. But, you know, who you should be asking those questions are the people who are in office taking all that PAC and special interest money. So those are questions that are very important to ask. My whole concern there is we need to hear from the courts to decide whether or not they believe that it is an entity is a person or an entity is something other than a person. I believe an entity is something other than a person. AI is creeping in, and AI is going to destroy so many jobs moving forward. AI is going to take over data centers. Your power's going up another 30% over the next year. There's a lot of things going on there. I personally, you can go look at my campaign website, go to hazelo.com, have no PAC money, have no special interest money. I'm not asking for it. If they give it to me, I'd be crazy not to take it because I have to run a campaign, and unfortunately our system has put us in a position where if you don't have money, you can't campaign. And that's an unfortunate position. But no, I don't think that I support a complete ban on it, but I would have to hear more and learn more and have more information on it. So I'm not going to try to blow smoke and say something that I don't know on that. I don't know if I agree or not.
Okay, Clyde, for 60 seconds.
So I'll be very clear on this issue. Our office, so Clyde Shavers, is right now leading this effort in Washington State. So about 2 weeks ago, we drafted a bill that serves this purpose, that serves to overturn Citizens United. So I hope, impressing upon all of you, and not just in the 10th district or beyond, but in all of Washington State and nationally, this is the bill that our office is working on right now. This is the bill that we are going to fight for, because I believe that as democracy continues to be so challenged in this environment, we need to make sure that your voice, every voice in Washington State, is louder than powerful corporations or influential, wealthy individuals, louder than PACs or super PACs or interest groups. So this is the bill that we are going to push forward as hard as possible, hopefully with your support and advocacy this coming January.
And Dave, for 60 seconds.
Yeah, so the Citizens United decision now a couple decades ago at the Supreme Court, I think was a terrible decision. It essentially provides no limit to what spending happens in campaigns, says that government legislatures can't dictate that. I disagree. I think it's a terrible decision, and it's allowing billionaires to try to influence our elections. If we can rein that in, I would love to see that.
Okay, thank you. So Clyde is first on the next question for 90 seconds. Data centers are the computing backbone for much of the internet-connected technology that people rely on, but they are on track to be the largest electricity users in the Pacific Northwest. What regulations do we need on data centers?
So along with our efforts on overturning Citizens United, as previously mentioned, our office has been leading on artificial intelligence legislation. I passed one of the first broad major artificial intelligence transparency laws in Washington State a few months ago, last session. I say that because data centers obviously is intertwined with the need or the desire for more and more energy to support and supplement artificial intelligence. I've already, there's actually a bill, Representative Beth Dolio chaired the Environment and Energy Committee, that actually looked to ensure that how do we ensure that data centers are regulated? How do we ensure that consumers, households like you, aren't paying astronomical prices? And how do we ensure that the environment, whether it's water usage or space, whatever it is considered, and tribal rights as well throughout this whole process? Unfortunately, the bill did not pass. I voted yes on that bill. I've expressed to Representative Beth Dolio that I will vote yes again. And as the member of the Washington State Artificial Intelligence Task Force, I continue to work with the Attorney General's office, with other industry members, other advocacy members, to ensure that this coming session, that bill will pass and that the people are protected in this age of data centers.
Thank you. It's a great question. Boy, the public sentiment on data centers has shifted quickly. When I first came to Olympia, the legislature was trying to bring in data centers. Thought that was with great job growth, bipartisan issue where folks supported it. I think there's the tremendous impact on users of electricity, on ratepayers. The environmental impacts we're seeing is both in terms of water, but in terms of the energy usage. We gotta rein that in. We stopped the subsidy, the tax incentives last year. We tried to pass that bill that Rep. Dolio to better regulate data centers. We've got work to do on that in the upcoming session.
Yeah, hey, we agree. Figure those odds, right? I am not a big data center fan. I am not a big data collection fan. I do believe that data centers are going to cause a lot of problems, but here's what's going to happen, you guys, and this is, we need to know this right up front. We can debate it until we're blue in the face. They're coming. The data centers are coming. They're going to be here. They're going to be utilized. So what we have to do is we have to find a way to regulate that to the point where it is safe, efficient, affordable, right? Affordability, number one issue, affordable, and it's not affordable under our current power grid. So we need to find better ways to power our systems. I used to work R&D on some small reactors that can power an entire city that are the size of a semi-trailer. They're safe, they're efficient, and that's something we can do. We can use hydroelectric power, the most efficient and cleanest electric power known to man. And we can use that power. So the reality is we can work together as a group on this.
And Dave will be first on this question for 90 seconds. In 2025, the Washington Supreme Court ordered that public defenders' caseloads be drastically reduced. Counties are facing budget shortfalls and lack of sufficient public defenders. How can the state help cities and counties meet this new increased demand for public defenders?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think there's no doubt that our state is not funding public defense well. And I think you can think about this in that large bucket of public safety. We could be doing a better job working with public safety officials and to help keep our public safe. So I work with Rep. Chambers and bring together the 9 legislators who represent the general Skagit area, both the 10th district, the 40th district, and 39th district, to work with chiefs and sheriffs. We meet twice a year about the work we need to do to improve public safety. And certainly we need to be providing our counties and cities with the tools necessary to help fund folks that need that public defenders. But we also need to be working on improving mental health, improving behavioral health services. So that's, in a challenging budget environment, that's tough. We're going to have to make hard choices in the upcoming budget. Certainly, we've got to look at improving the support we're providing to public defense.
Jim, for 60 seconds.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. And there are things we can do to fix this problem. I know that Island County has a shortage of public defenders. I've witnessed it myself. The reality here is that there are ways to fix this. We can have groups of public defenders in counties, a group of counties, say Skagit, Snohomish, Whatcom, Island, San Juan, and they can share the caseload. Some places have less load, some places have higher load. There's definitely a fix for this, but once again, it comes down to budget and affordability. What are you willing to sacrifice over here to pay for over there without taking more money out of your pocket, without going back to the well over and over and over again, which is what our legislator has done, our legislation has done for 40 years. So we definitely we can fix it, and we can afford to fix it. We can afford to fix it even without tax increases. It's about smart spending, as Governor Gregoire said. Thank you.
Clyde.
Thank you for this question. It's a very salient and relevant question now because of the Supreme Court decision. So I've been speaking with a lot of folks who are involved or work in the judicial system in Island County, trying to understand how can we fix this problem. I think the first question is money, right? Where can we get the money in Washington State? I've had conversations with the Appropriations Committee on ensuring that Washington State provides the appropriate amount of money to our counties, because the counties in the end will have to bear the cost. The second, I co-sponsored actually a bill with Representative Addison Richard to try to move the ball forward a little bit. Now, I will say a little bit because it doesn't solve the problem, but it is those kind of co-sponsorships and hopefully primary sponsorships in the future to try to move this ball forward. In the end, while we're in the challenging budget year, this is not a problem we cannot forget about, but it is a problem that we need to make incremental progress in.
Okay, and then the final question, Tim will start first. As a state representative, you would represent rural areas of 3 different counties plus several cities. How do you balance the priorities of each?
Well, I attend a lot of forums. I go to a lot of meetings. I was at the Farm Bureau recently. I had the Washington State Farm Bureau's endorsement. Here's the thing. You have to be in your district. You have to meet the people in your district. You have to work in your district. Myself and Dave and Clyde, we've been around a while. We know a lot of people. We shake a lot of hands. and we say hi, and we're cordial with everybody, whether we like their ideas or not. We absorb what they're telling us to try to incorporate that stuff into our position. The difference here is I am in that position. I am a small farmer. I have been a small business owner. I am suffering from the taxation and the overregulation and the overfees. The farmers I know that I work with are suffering from bad policy, from water to labor and from government. Do you know that farmers lose hundreds of millions of dollars in the state of Washington every year? But you go to Oregon and you go to Idaho and they make hundreds of millions of dollars every year. Most fertile land in America. But guess what? The only difference between Idaho, Oregon, and Washington when it comes to small business and success is the government, is the current legislature and the current governor and the last 40 years of bad legislation. It's time for us to make a change. And if the change don't work, then we can regress back to what's already not working even worse than what the change is probably going to do for us. We can beat this, we can win, and we can move forward.
Clyde, for 60 seconds.
I think I'll approach this question in this way. Going at a whole lot of people and events across our district, you're undergirded or similar issues that we all care about. So for example, affordability persists across every single family, across every working individual and adult, and young adult as well. Our past 4 years, we've been working on expanding the property tax exemption for seniors and veterans and people with disabilities. Most recently, co-sponsoring legislation that actually lowered the disability rating requirement for veterans. We've actually co-sponsored a bill just last session that really works at those kind of stopping those unfair water hikes that we all see here and there. We've also worked on ensuring that we pass one of the most major expansion of veteran service officers so all our veterans can receive those benefits. All these bills come from our office, from us, but these ideas come from all of you. And that's how I approach with Island, Skagit, and Snohomish counties.
Dave.
Thank you. So the first step is to listen to constituents across the district and to find out what issues they're facing and then figure out common ground to help solve those issues. And we go to Olympia and we try to advocate for changes. Most of my bills that I've had have come from constituents. I've had folks that work with veterans education who talked about the loopholes that meant that one family member could take advantage of in-state tuition, but the retiree service member couldn't. We fixed that. City of Oak Harbor came and talked to me about issues they were having using the existing tax structure, the re-tax, to expand public safety in their community. That was a kind of a complicated bill, but a simple bill at the same time. I worked with the realtors, worked with public safety, worked with the cities, and we got that fixed. We've got a lot more in common than we do that are differences, and if we can focus on what we have in common, it's easier to get things done.
Okay, thank you. Now, you will each have 2 minutes for a closing statement, and we'll start with Clyde.
So I'll close with how I opened. I really appreciate all of you being here. Right now, we're in a very challenging time, whether it's through the affordability, whether it's through environmental protection or democracy in general. So in the past 4 years, we've been really working on ensuring that we're in those critical leadership positions, whether as vice chair of the education committee, or whether it's assistant speaker pro tem, or some other position in the future, to really ensure that your voice is loud and clear in the things we care about. Our office, I believe, have been especially effective in passing legislation, whether it's primary sponsorships or co-sponsorships, in the things we care about. I touched upon affordability. I touched upon passing one of the most major artificial intelligence transparency legislation as well. Our office passed the very first clean energy fusion technology bill in Washington State 2 years ago, and again, the following year. These are the issues that we were tackling, issues that we all care about. The question I ask all of you is my legislator effective? I believe I am. I believe that the things we care about are actually moving us forward. Imagine a future where our children have all the career learning opportunities available to them, whether it's in South Whitby or Coupeville or Oak Harbor or everywhere in the 10th. Imagine a world where they are actually living in a world of fusion technology. Imagine a world that technology like artificial finally imagine a world where democracy continues to endure and grow because we have passed legislation that prohibits these large corporations or wealthy individuals to perverting our campaign finance. These are the major ideas that really change everything, and I really appreciate being here and be able to use your voice to really propel me forward, propel all of us forward in Washington State forward to a better future. Thank you.
Dave?
Thank you. I have a really great question about the work we're trying to do to help improve our community. There's so much anger in the United States right now. People everywhere are angry. The middle class is shrinking. There are so many things that people are angry about on both the right and the left. And it's easy with all that anger not to get anything done. And what I'm trying to do with my work is to focus on what I can affect. And for me, the legislation that's college affordability, I can help make sure that our state is focusing on making sure tuition's low, and that we've got not only a college grant program that helps folks go to college, but also helps with apprenticeships and workforce training. I can help lower healthcare costs by looking at ways of reducing the cost of EpiPens and asthma inhalers. We can work on housing, help fund Habitat for Humanity, other community groups that are trying to build more housing in our community to help people thrive. And I can work on family wage jobs. That's kind of my wheelhouse as a community college instructor and as somebody who has helped students both inside and outside the classroom. Everything we do in our college system should be focused on living wage jobs. In that, anger is just palpable right now. Just this week we've learned about how much the president has earned in cryptocurrency, and people are barely able to get by in our community. But if we can focus on what we can affect, I really think we can make a difference. My opponent talked about the impact on farmers. I can't control what the president does in Iran and how that's impacted and skyrocketed fertilizer costs, but I can work on family wage jobs and the Washington College grant. And I hope I can earn your support to keep doing that in the upcoming session.
Thank you. We talk a lot about affordability. Affordability is a big deal. We have to figure this out. Dave talked about the high cost of fuel, I think is what he was alluding to, and I don't mind saying it. Fuel's out of control. Did you know that we spend about $1.79 a gallon in the state of Washington, in addition to what the cost of fuel is? $1.79. It's not all taxes. It's fees, it's credits, it's other things that have been added that get passed on to us by the companies. $1.79. Do you know in Tennessee, just a few short months ago, they were paying $2 a gallon? Right now in the state of Washington, gas would be, roughly $2.40, almost $3 a gallon if we weren't paying $1.79. So affordability is a big deal, and that's something the legislation can handle and take care of. Here's the thing, you guys. If your priorities are, and I got notes here, if your priorities are higher government fees, higher taxes, increased regulation, and ever-increasing prices, which we've had, look at our budget, which we've had, if that's your priority, stick with what you got. Stick with what you got. Keep the legislation you got. Keep the government you got. But if your priority is restrained spending, if your priority is business growth, housing affordability, most of our housing problems are caused by the government. Not by you and I, by the government. Business growth, housing affordability, lighter regulations, so you can do more on your own property. Well, then I'm your guy. And new people like me are your guy. So I ask you to go out, vote Hazelo across the board. It's pretty important. We can make positive changes, so we can do it together. And I agree with a lot of the stuff my opponent likes to do. The problem is, they voted for every tax increase that's come across the desk over the last 8 years. Every regulation increase that's come across the desk for the last 8 years. Is that what you want? More taxes, more regulation, less freedom, less democracy? That's what we're getting right now with who we have in office. Thank you.
Let's give these candidates a round of applause. So we're going to switch out to the auditor candidates as quickly as possible here, and we'll start moving in. So we'll for a couple of minutes.
Tonight.